students, welcome back. I am here with chapter 1, part 2. So the topic you are going to learn is photosynthesis, food making process in plants. So let's start the process. You know that you can tell leaves kitchen of the plants where they make their food. Then about talking water and minerals are absorbed by roots and transported to the leaves. So carbon dioxide from the air is taken through the tiny pores which is called stomata, which is present on the surface of leaves. And these tiny little pores are protected by guard cells.
Process of stomatal transpiration. Most of the transpiration takes place through stomata. Stomata are microscopic parts consisting of two kidney-shaped guard cells. In stomatal transpiration, water vapor moves through the stomata of leaf. Water absorbed by the roots rises through the stem and reaches the tissues of the leaves through veins. A large number of spongy mesophyll cells in the leaf have their surfaces exposed to the intercellular spaces. The surfaces of the cells give out some of the water which forms a thin film. The water from this film evaporates and the water vapor formed saturates in the intercellular spaces. This vapor then diffuses into the other connecting intercellular spaces and finally reaches substomatal space from where it escapes out through the stomata. Stomata are absent in the submerged hydrophytes, that is, Hydrilla, Vallisneria. Mechanism of opening and closing of stomata. Transpiration occurs as long as the stomata are open. It stops when they are closed. Open and closed stomata. Closed stomata. Flaccid guard cell. Stoma closed. Stoma open. Turgid guard cell. Thick cell wall. Thin cell wall. The opening and closing of stomata depend upon the turgid or flaccid state of guard cells. When the guard cells are in the flaccid state, stomatal aperture closes. During daytime, as a result of photosynthesis, as the guard cells have chloroplast, concentration of carbohydrates rises, leading to osmotic uptake of water by the guard cells to swell. Since the wall of guard cells towards stomatal opening is thick, while outer convex wall is thin, inflow of water in the guard cells causes them to bulge outwards, thus widening the stomatal opening.
Leaves have special green pigment called chlorophyll. It helps to capture the energy of sunlight. This energy is used to prepare food from carbon dioxide and water. Since this whole process occurs in the presence of sunlight, it is called photosynthesis. Because photo means light and synthesis means to combine. So, to combine all of the ingredients in the presence of sunlight is called photosynthesis. It is very unique process on the earth. So, in this process, chlorophyll containing cells of leaves in the presence of sunlight use carbon dioxide and water to synthesize their food, which is carbohydrates. During the process, oxygen is released and the presence of starch in the leaves indicates the occurrence of photosynthesis process.
What is photosynthesis? Without photosynthesis, there would probably be no life on Earth. Photosynthesis is the process in which green plants, water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight turn into oxygen and carbohydrates, Sugar. Living creatures need carbohydrates to fuel our body and oxygen to breathe. Photosynthesis happens inside the chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are the small structures that give the plant the green color. There are about 10 to 20 of these in every plant cell. Inside the chloroplasts are these stacks of little sacs with green stuff inside. Each of the sacs is called a thylakoid. Outside of the sac is called a membrane, and the inside is filled with chlorophyll. Photosynthesis happens in two stages: the light-dependent reaction and the light-independent reaction, also called the Calvin cycle. The light-dependent reaction happens in the thylakoid membrane. The light-independent reaction, Calvin cycle, takes place in the empty space within the chloroplast, the stroma. This is the formula. So 6 carbon dioxide molecules, 6 water molecules, and sunlight makes 6 oxygen and 1 carbohydrate, sugar. Starting with a light-dependent reaction, sunlight travels from the sun onto the earth, through the leaf, through the chloroplast, into the thylakoid. Energy from the sun is called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. While the sunlight comes in, water is also being transported into the chloroplast. ATP splits the water, H2O, into H and 2O, hydrogen and oxygen. In this process, oxygen gets released into the atmosphere. The chemicals NADPH, NADP plus hydrogen, leave the thylakoid and get into the stroma, which is where the Calvin cycle happens. The CO2 from the atmosphere forms a line of 6 carbons. The chemical NADPH with the ATP combine the CO2 with hydrogen, giving us the last part of the molecule, 6O2 plus C6H12O6. We have carbohydrates, which the plant uses to grow, which animals eat, who then breathe out some more CO2.